Hello, humans, and welcome to the Sand and Stars podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. And as promised, I am going to be having guests who are doing impressive, shocking, different, interesting things that we generally never hear about or even think could be a thing. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Eunice Mathu, who is the founder of the Rejesha Project Kenya. Eunice is a 5'3" tiny human being who has taken on a gigantic task. She works with sex workers to create a community where they empower them to break the cycle of prostitution in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm so excited to have her on, listen to her story, learn from her lessons, and be inspired by the fearlessness with which she has approached this. So let's get started. So, Eunice.
Yeah.
Who are you?
Well, I feel like that's a big question. Who am I? Even though it's always a journey discovering who you are, isn't it? But I guess these days I sort of say that I describe myself as a social entrepreneur because I think I'm passionate about social justice. I'm passionate about seeing women in vulnerable situations, women who are marginalized, women who are stigmatized, empowered, but not necessarily in kind of like the traditional way that we know of NGOs and just kind of like handing out money and that kind of thing. But how do we give people skills to be able to actually stand on their own 2 feet? So that's what I see myself as. And yeah, and I love women. I want to see women get to a place where they can be. I know there is a lot of women now in leadership and leading in various areas of life, but I think not necessarily the areas where it's glamorized, but leaders in your own families, that kind of thing. So I consider myself a social entrepreneur. I am also truly Kenyan. I actually am I'm a village girl at heart. So I grew up in Nyeri.
Nyeri girl.
Yes, the tea plantations, raised by strong women. I actually say that I was raised by my grandmother and my mother. So my mother is a single mother, so raised by those 2 women. And I just think that it has had a lot of influence to who I am today. My grandmother was a very strong woman. She carried 10 babies. Unfortunately, 2 died. So she was a very strong woman. And I also see that strength in my own mother to see her, what she's overcome and all the hurdles that she's gone through. So I get my strength from those 2 women. And yes, I love the countryside. I love the forests, hearing the birds sing and just being in waterfalls. And actually I grew up climbing trees. I'm a big
tree climber.
What they would have called a tomboy.
Yeah, you climb those. You still climb those trees.
I still do. I still do. So that's in a nutshell, that's who I am. I love Jesus. I'm a Christian, and I think for me it's not just in saying it, it's just also in following the calling and following Jesus. And what does that mean in my life and in my everyday life? What does that mean in following Jesus? And I think it's every day choosing to say to God, I can't do this on my own, and I need you, and also knowing that this life is not just for me to enjoy and live. It's also to say to God, what am I sacrificing for you, and how do I follow you completely and wholeheartedly? So basically that's me.
Oh, fantastic. And she said she does not know what to say. All right, so let's jump into Rejesha.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
What is Rejesha? What is it?
Yeah. Gosh, Rejesha started off as a tiny project back in 2019, November of 2019. And we started off just going out to the streets. So basically, Rejesha reaches out to female sex workers in the city of Nairobi, in the red light district area of Nairobi, and we started off going with a small team, just going out and saying hi to the ladies. Actually started off with me going and saying hi to the women and actually seeing what it looks like and whether it's something that we can do.
Wait,
and then,
did you go alone?
Yes, back in the day, well before November of 2019.
Yeah.
Majority of 2019, I used to go out to the city, and there is a Java that I love to sit to this day, and it's Java Standard Street, because it allows you to kind of like go outside at the balcony and you can visualize what's going on down there. And that's how I really got to do a bit of ground research, is going out there and seeing what's going on and writing down. And then I saw that these ladies, actually, they come and they talk to the security guards. So then I started going back and talking to the security guards and saying, hey, I saw you speak to these ladies. I want to start this kind of a project and I want to be able to get connected to these ladies. So then, months down the line, 2019, we had a group of people that we took to the city, and now we reach out to female sex workers in our city. Every fortnight on a Saturday, we go with a hot meal, home cooked food, teas and coffees, mandazis, and nice stuff. And we have a space on Koinange Street. How amazing is that? The space that we found is on Koinange Street.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we invite these ladies to come, and we serve. We not just serve, we serve and eat together. Because what we wanted to create is a safe, judgment-free space where these ladies can come and just go beyond that. It's a place for them to really be seen, to be known, to be heard, and to be seen not for what they're selling, not for their bodies, but to be seen as human beings, as daughters of Christ. So that's what we do, and we've been doing that since then. Yeah,
that's amazing. It's in fact, I always think how it would never have struck me to have a conversation unless they initiated it. In fact, it's not something that I even think about. You're taught, everyone knows Koinange Street is the street where at a certain point in the night you do not want to pass by there. You do not want association. It's like, keep a distance,
stay away. These are really bad women, bad people. They will influence you. They will, I think our society has defined them as the people who are responsible for degrading the moral fabric of our society. And there's such stigma around, and it's such a deep stigma that even being next to the location at a certain point is almost taboo. So that's really interesting. So other than because I know you've talked about how you sit down, you have meals with them, and they feel there's dignity restored in being seen as a human being. I think that's fantastic. So what else does Rejesha do with the sex workers? I think when we started, and mind you, we weren't also sure whether this is something that is needed. Do they need this? Do they want this? So we really wanted to take our time to get to know them and also build those relationships. We're in this for the long haul. We're not just in this to see them and then say to them, you need to leave the street, what you're doing is wrong, and do you know that God doesn't like this? No, that's not what we do. And the more that we went out, and when we were consistent in going out, and they started to realize, actually, these people there is something different about these people. They come. It's not like perhaps other people who've been there and they will come once every year, but we wanted to be consistent and stay. And then we realized that there are so many women who perhaps do this because what they do during the day just doesn't make their ends, that does not meet their needs. There are women who do bit of skills in like braiding hair, or doing vibaruas, going and cleaning people's houses.
So they actually have Nobody ever thinks of them having other jobs or anything else. It's just like, this is what you do. Yeah.
For some of these ladies, they do something else during the day. Not all of them, but for some they do, because they have kids. Some of them, most of our women are mothers, and all of them, I'm yet to meet a woman out on the streets who says, no, actually I have a partner at home, I have a husband at home, I have a boyfriend at home. None of them have that. So they have children, and they are the sole breadwinners of their households. So they do bits and pieces here and there during the day, but it just doesn't meet their needs, and they need to supplement their income. So in our talking with these ladies, we found out that there are many of them who want to leave the streets, but just don't know how to actually do that, and do that sustainably and successfully. So back in 2021, so COVID came around 2020, and we were just like thrown into this, I don't know what to call it, kind of like a tornado of, oh my goodness, life has changed. And so did life change for everyone else, including the ladies on the streets, because they couldn't work as they used to because of the curfew and also the COVID situation. So there is a lot of women out there who've been wanting to leave the streets. And in 2021, we said, hey, let's see what we can offer. We started small businesses, and in my local church, which we both go to, Renewal Church Nairobi, I said, look, I'm gonna ask people to give clothes, really good stuff that can be resold. We have so many people who have a lot of stuff in their closet, they don't wear it, and every year they say, do you know what, I will wear it someday. I said, can we have some really good stuff, perhaps something that these ladies can sell, so secondhand clothes. And because we didn't have a lot of money to say to a lady, hey, here is 20,000, go and get yourself some really good stuff to come and sell, we thought, let's see what is available and what resources we can get. And my goodness, it was amazing back in February of 2021 to get so much clothes. My house and my car was always full of stuff. I still have stuff in my house, and this was set to start with one lady, but we got so much stuff that it was enough to ask 2 more women, hey, would you ever consider selling clothes? And they were all for it. So we started off with small businesses, helping these ladies sell off secondhand clothes, and then we gave to more, and I think eventually we had 5 women selling clothes, but 2 of them dropped off along the journey, just because, hey, business is difficult. I'm an entrepreneur. I know how hard it is. You're an entrepreneur. Startup is not easy, and not everybody wants to go into business. But we are pleased to say that we still have 3 women selling clothes, and 2 of them have actually evolved into doing other things or selling other things. One of our ladies sells men's wear, and you cannot convince her to sell women's wear. She says women, they bargain too much. They just faff with everything. Whereas the guys, they know what they want. I want a white shirt.
Come in.
It's 400. I will take it. So she sells men's wear, and then she got a freezer, and now she also supplements her business by selling ice pops. She's amazing, and she just celebrated 1 year in business.
That's fantastic.
On the 31st of March, we celebrated her business. She's been 1 year. And then the other lady also started selling sausages and eggs. She has a sausage and egg cart, and she sells those. They're amazing, incredible women, I think. And contrary to what people say and know about them, that they're lazy and they don't want to do anything else, actually these are women who have, despite all odds, they've overcome so much. Some of them, they've overcome a lot of abuse growing up, a lot of abuse through partners, and some of them never got an education because they grew up in poor neighborhoods and their parents were poor. So they're doing everything they can to survive, and we see that, and we see the resilience that they have. They really are very strong women. And and we want to do more. We want to be able to support a lot more of these ladies exit prostitution. We don't push it. We only support those women who are willingly wanting to exit prostitution, and we will journey with those who don't want to exit prostitution. I think that's, as an organization, we're there to bring hope and dignity to women in prostitution. So whether they stay on the streets or whether they want to leave the streets, we will be there for all of them.
Oh, that's amazing. Because usually you'd assume, people would be like, we want to help them escape and get out and get out and get out. But it has to be a choice, right? So whether they choose to or not, it's still supporting them in their journey of life, right?
Absolutely.
Because they are human beings who deserve love and respect and just to live a better life generally. So my question is, so for dear listeners who are not here, Eunice is a tiny human being. So I'm just imagining this tiny human being roaming through the streets of Nairobi, and even on her day-to-day work she's in Kayole. I mean, she's in rough neighborhoods with her itty-bitty self. So I think what I want to ask is I would love to start with the when and then the why, right? So the when is, what was that moment when you decided, or the thought entered your mind, that you want to work with sex workers, for sex workers, and just support them? When did this? When? When did this happen?
Wow. Do you know, it's actually difficult for me to pinpoint the exact moment that this happened. I always say, I think for me, a seed was planted at a certain point, and that certain point was I think it was 2021, and I went on a holiday to Watamu with two of my friends, and my goodness, I didn't know what it was. I was so naive. I didn't know what it was, but what I saw was sex tourism, and there were so many girls, 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 15, even to my age, 20 and above. There were so many and everywhere. And when it happened for me, I remember, 20 years old and going to this, you're in Watamu, you're there to have fun, and you're holidaying, and we are at a club one evening with my friends, and they go off to the bathroom. So I'm left in charge of our table, and this guy comes over. He was an old Italian Mzungu. He came over and he says, I have a nice pool. You girls are so beautiful. Da 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 da. My naive self believed him. And my friends came back.
This was solicited.
I know. And my friends came back. And I said, do you see that gentleman over there? And he said this. One of my friends looked at me and she said, oh my goodness, what do you think he's calling you for? What do you think this is? And Rhoda, when I say, my eyes popped open, they popped open, because then I saw it everywhere. I saw prostitution everywhere. Everywhere we went, coffee shops, to get gelato, to go to the spa, go to the beach. It was everywhere. And for me, I couldn't believe it. I was just like, but these are underage girls. From what I know, that's actually wrong. Illegal. It's wrong. What's going on? And back then I was actually studying psychology, thinking I'm going to go into criminal psychology. I'm a very adventurous, and I like to, pull things apart, and I'm very curious about things. So I thought I was going to go into criminal psychology.
Wow.
So when that happened, and I went back to my life and I went back to class, but when I say that this is God's doing, because a seed was planted that time, and then over time it didn't leave me. What I saw never left me. And honestly, for me, I say it's God who was breaking my heart for something that he's passionate about. Because the two friends that I was with went back, and they are all doing things that are not related to working with sex workers or working with victims of sexual exploitation or anything like that. But for me, it was something that stayed with me. So I finished my psychology degree and I worked for a bit. But then this thing that was growing in me, I became too curious about it, and I was doing a lot of research. And I found that there is this thing called human trafficking.
Yeah.
And it just blew my mind. I was like, but slavery ended years ago, hundreds of years ago. No, this is modern day slavery. And millions of people are caught up in it. And the way now that I see it, even though there are so many schools of thoughts that will not agree with this, but I do see prostitution in a way in line with modern day slavery. It is, because in an age where women are left without no other economic choice, that this is the only choice that you have. And people say, oh, but they've chosen to do what they're doing. And I say, wait, I'm a woman and I was never presented with the option of going to prostitution. When I went to college, I was told you can be a teacher, you can be a driver, you can be a lawyer, doctor. It never came up that you can also be a sex worker. So how is this an economic choice? It is not a choice. It's only a choice for those who've been left with no other choices. So for me, it is slavery. Because if we offer women in marginalized communities, vulnerable women, other options to heal from trauma, options to go into certain career options, then this does not become the only option. So for me, I think over time, and I spend a lot of time working with women from all kinds of backgrounds and all sorts of vulnerable situations, domestic violence, and I lived and worked in the UK for a bit, so I seen a lot of cultures and so honor-based violence, gender-based violence, sexual-based violence. So I've worked with all kinds of women. So this is how it all came about, and it just grew and grew and grew for me until I've become so passionate about it. And I felt convinced that God is so much in this, and He's led all the way, and I'm just saying, hey, okay, what do you want me to do with this?
For the ride.
And I will follow. Which is not always easy to say and to do that, but yes, that's when. And
the when and the why rolled into one.
Oh, it rolled into one, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, it is. And that's so the seed was planted, right? You were studying psychology, and I always say that strings, like everything makes sense, like when you in hindsight, right? Because you have basically studied the human mind, right? And emotions and how people react to situations, and it's basically like you are equipped to handle, because the women have a lot of trauma. There's no way that you give your body away, and it's like your mind, your soul. There's abuse, you had previous abuse, and there's so much going on.
Absolutely.
To handle that, it's quite heavy as well, right?
It is.
So I feel like it all aligns backwards, and you are equipped for that even before you knew what it is that you were supposed to do. So now you're working, and you finished your university in the UK, you're working in the UK. Came back to Kenya. Right? And was that so when you came back, did you know that this would start, or what was because now the seed has been planted, right? It's there. But what pushed you over like the edge, and you're like, I'm actually going to start this. I'm going to go roving the streets of Nairobi and have conversations
with sex workers
and basically get the ball rolling.
So when this is I think my journey and how it's all come together sometimes is so surprisingly, as you're saying, you don't see what's gonna come, but everything all lines up and it all goes into a certain direction. Because for the last 5 years back in the UK. So I came back in 2018, and for about 5 years before that, I just felt that I wanted to be at home. And for some reason, I wasn't even sure what is this feeling. And I was reading my journal that I have. I write a lot when I'm doing my quiet times, or I just write things down.
Yeah.
And I was reading something from 2015.
Wow.
And in that journal, I'm saying, I know that you're calling me to go home, but I have no idea what that looks like. I don't even know what I'm going to do, but somehow I feel that I should be faithful and listen to that. And that was 2015, and it still took 3 more years of me being so restless, which is very true, because I was so restless for that 5 years, knowing that I wanted to be back home, or I needed to be back home, but I wasn't sure when it's going to happen and what that's going to look like. So I land 2018, and I have this word in my mind and in my heart, which is filling a gap. So and I'm saying to God, I don't understand. What does that mean? Where is the gap, first of all? So I actually thought that because I'm passionate about tackling human trafficking, and I thought that's where I'm gonna go into. And in essence, I'm still doing that. But I reached out to this organization. It's amazing, and it works with victims of trafficking here in Kenya. And I reached out to the CEO, and I said, look, this is my experience. I've worked in this area. I've done a lot of policy work back in the UK. I would love to come and work with you. And we met, and I even met the team, but for some reason it didn't feel right. It didn't settle. And you know that there is, where you're supposed to be. You can feel that peace, and you just settled in it. And I was just like, no, this is not it. I just feel like this is not the gap. So where is the gap? And that's how I ended up going to the streets. And then when I started to see it, and I would say to God, is this the gap that you're talking about? Is the women in prostitution? Because I couldn't find anyone else who is working with these ladies. And I would ask them, so do you have other people who are supporting you, and what support is available out there? And they would say, gosh, there isn't anything here. So I said to God, is this the gap that you've been telling me or talking to me about? And the peace, and yes. And I said, okay, we found the gap. So how do we get this going, God? What's supposed to happen next? I don't even have, by that time I've run out of my savings. I came back with my savings, and I'm thinking, oh, this is gonna take me, I'd saved and luckily when you're changing money from pounds to Kenya shillings, I'm thinking, okay, this is gonna be good for me. It's gonna last me at least 9 months. That was a lie. It lasted me about 5 months, and 3 months into me being back, I'm thinking, gosh, this is not gonna last me as I thought it is going to last me. What am I going to do? So even when I was starting in 2019, I remember, I think it was Kenya shillings 5,000 that I had, and I said, okay, we're gonna buy some mandazis, some tea, some sodas, and some cups, and then we paid for the space. And I said, okay, let's get started. So we started with that. And then the next time that we needed to go out, the church renewal said, hey, we have 10,000. Can we also run another outreach? That was amazing what we did. Let's run a second outreach. And actually on the first outreach, I cooked. Boy, I've got to have to say this, that I'm not a chef. Anyone who's been subjected to my food, I'm so sorry, because I am not gifted in that area. But on that day, I made dengu and rice. It was not the most amazing food, but we went out, and on the first night, I think we served about 23 or 25 women, which we're thinking, either this is, they're coming to see how we are, who we are, they're just intrigued, and then they're not going to come next time. But the next time we said, with the 10,000 that Renewal Church has gifted, we said, we're going to make something better. I can't remember what it was, but someone else cooked that time. We got close to 40 women. We ran out of food. We went to Naivas to get pilau because we ran out of food that day. And we're just thinking, okay, maybe it's also, they've invited other people to come and see who we are, and it's just, it's a fluke. This is not going to happen. This is not going to carry on like this. And it's amazing, like 3 years on, or 2.5 years on, we have seen these ladies over and over again. They've become our friends, our sisters. These women call me up on Easter mornings. Today I got a call to say, hey Eunice, I just wanted to say happy Easter. On Christmas Day, I get messages and calls. Hey, happy Christmas, we're just checking up on you. Like, these women have completely turned around the stigma and the narrative that people or the society have about them. They've loved us so much. And I think, Rhoda, you've probably heard me say this when I've talked in church and said, I don't like walking down in CBD during the day. I don't like it at all. Everybody is minding their own business. Nobody is,
CBD,
do you know? Yeah, but at night, it's my favorite time to walk down those streets.
Wow.
And we go down there and I have women waving at us from corners and just saying, hey, you came, and they will run to you and give you a hug and say, oh, we're so glad that you're here. We're so glad that you came. It's just really amazing women that we've grown to really, really love, and they become part of our family. So Rejesha is not just an organization. Rejesha is really a community and a family.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing. And why the name Rejesha?
Ooh. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Because I remember not even knowing what to call this. But I knew there was one word that just kept coming back to me, which was God wants to restore his people back to himself, restore their dignity and their respect, but also restore this great city that we call home, this great city of Nairobi, restore that to himself. So and I didn't even know what restore was, so I went on Google and I was like, what's restore in Kiswahili? And it came up, Rejesha. And my goodness, when I read that and then I said Rejesha, and it was just like, okay, I think that's the name. Let's find out if it's someone else is using it before we actually use it. Okay, there was no
everything, and you have to now start from scratch with a different brand.
Yes. So that's how the name came about.
Oh, that's amazing. So finally, we've got into the final bit, but I feel like I have so many other questions.
Let's go.
What are the greatest lessons that you have learned in this journey of being obedient to what God has called you to, people would call it intuition, that calling. What are your lessons so far?
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, and I feel like I have a lot, but I
give them. Give them all.
So I think a major lesson for me is I'm stronger than I perhaps give myself credit for. And I know I'm a tiny 5'3" and I don't know, petite woman, but that's never been a concern for me. I think I always felt internally I'm a strong person. But when you've been put through a journey like this, because my goodness, I think, let's be honest, it hasn't been just all hills. It hasn't been all kind of like flat, and it's been amazing, and there are no challenges, and everything is working out. Actually not. This has been a tornado, a roller coaster, all tied into one. And honestly speaking, there are days when I would wake up and I'll be like, I don't know why you called me here. I don't know what we're doing. I don't feel like we're making an impact. I don't want to do this. And then by 10 a.m. I'll be like, okay, I'm so sorry. Yes, I believe in this. Let's keep going.
We can do this.
It is such a roller coaster. I would not lie to anyone listening to this and thinking, oh, okay, so I can go out there and just do this. Of course you can. But I think believing and really digging in deep to find that inner strength is something that I have to speak to. But also really knowing who does this belong to, because Rejesha is not mine. Rejesha is not my name, or it's not about me. This is God's doing. And I think all those days when I am going through, you know, the muddy and rough and smelly bits, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing, I just need to take a moment and say, oh, but you know what you're doing, because you set this up. These are your people. They're not mine. It's not mine to hold with my palms closed tight. I actually hold it loosely. So knowing who it is, and honestly, for me, the faithfulness of God, I talked about that journal that I was writing all those 15 years back, and now it's, I don't know how many years ago now, and God has been faithful to fulfill those promises that he made. So I have seen the faithfulness of God in so many ways that now I just have to remind myself to stop and go and just listen and just be okay. At the beginning of this year, I spent a whole month, January, just taking a bit of a sabbatical, where I was saying to God, where are we going with this? I just want to know what this year looks like. So that's a lesson. And also really community. I think without the community of friends that I've made along the way, community of Renewal Church, we have, you know, we started, actually the project did not start with outreach, it started off with prayer. We set up a prayer team before going out to the streets, because for me it was so important to start this off in the right way. And also you have to know, we go to the very dark and dangerous places, not just physically but also spiritually dark. So the first team was a prayer team, and then we went out to the streets sort of like 2 weeks after or something like that. So definitely community and cultivating relationships in a community is something else. So whatever you might have in your heart and in your mind that you want to do, seeking those people who will carry you through when you can't carry yourself and you need other people to actually be the ones who are holding you up. And my goodness, I do have very good community and people around me that I would just go and say, can I just drop everything and leave and just go on holiday? And then they will come back with good words for me and just say, but Eunice, you can't, because what else would you do? And then I come back to my senses and I'm like, absolutely, this is my passion, this is where my heart is. So you do need those people who don't judge you, but they really just embrace you and carry you through. I think those are the really important things that I could tell people. Or maybe one more is listen to your gut, follow that voice. Sometimes I think there are so many of us who've had a voice or have had a passion or something brewing in their hearts, but they're just like, I am so scared, I am too scared to do it. I don't think you ever get to a place where you're not scared. I think that fear is something, it's a natural instinct, and it's not to say don't do it, it's something that says to you, go for it. It's you're built with it. That fear is already in there, but facing it and going for it. And my goodness, if all those years ago of hearing this voice or knowing that God is calling me into something, I think about it, if I was too afraid to say, oh, I can't do it, I don't know how to do it, gosh, where would I be? I think it would, this journey has been so exciting and just too adrenaline, and because I love adrenaline, I have a bit of I'm a adrenaline junkie. So for me, I enjoy it, and I've really enjoyed the growth. I have gone through so much growth in the last years of being in this, and my gosh, God will never fail you. If he says, I want you to go into something, like, he will not fail you. I told you we started with 5,000 that I put from my
5,000 bob.
My last few savings
Last
that I had,
Yeah.
and coming to this date, and my goodness, we've got, you know, people not just funding us, but coming on to this journey and saying, I believe in what you're doing. I love what you're doing. And how can we get behind you to get into the point where we can hire people? We've just hired a social worker who then goes and is able to carry on with meeting the ladies on a regular basis and understanding what their needs are. So follow that voice, as scary as it is. Follow it, see what happens.
I love that. Huh? That's such a nice conclusion.
Yeah.
But I love what you said about the fear, because what I have learned, and it's very interesting because you said it and I said it's been a narrative in my life as well the last few months, is fear means that when you're just comfortable and nothing is happening, there's no fear.
There is no fear.
But you're not being challenged, you're not growing, and
You're not being stretched.
You're not being stretched.
Yeah.
And anybody who has done anything, even in the little part of their world, even if it's the smallest thing, felt that jolt of fear, because fear comes through when something is completely different to what you're used to. It's strange, it's unknown, and the unknown creates a lot of fear, but that's where the amazing things are discovered.
Yes. Yeah. You learn so much about yourself and what you're capable of. When you're going through that very fearful, you were just too afraid to jump, but then you jump and you're like, it's not as bad as I thought it was.
Not as bad. And you always create a huge monster out of things that you do not know.
Isn't that so true?
Yeah.
So true. You think the world is gonna swallow you alive, and then you go in and you're thinking, oh, do you know what?
It's not as bad as I thought it would be.
It's not.
I can do this.
Yeah.
And it's a little I can do this every single day.
Yeah.
That leads you to continue doing it and just doing amazing things.
Yeah. And do it without being afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah.
I actually start off a lot of my meetings with people saying, I have no idea what I'm doing. But welcome to this journey. Let's figure it out together.
Let's go.
I've never done this before. I've never led a project like this before. I've been part of projects where other people are leading. So there are so many things. I have no idea what I'm doing. But guess what? Isn't that what all of us are? Yeah. Who was born knowing what they're doing? Nobody. So God will equip us.
And
I
learn. I think there's a lot of such false shame around
not knowing
something.
No.
So you find people feigning knowledge.
The fake till you make it thing.
Fake till you make it, and it's because you're afraid of actually just stopping and saying, I have no idea.
I have no idea what I'm doing. I just said it, and I say it over and over again. I think I'll probably start advisory meetings for Rejesha with my advisor saying, okay, I sent you something to read. I have no idea what I'm doing. Let's talk about it.
Quick before we end, Eunice, how can people get involved? How can they learn more about Rejesha? Where can we find you?
Yeah. You can find us at rejeshaprojectnairobi.org. I'll say that again, rejeshaprojectnairobi.org. That's our website. It has everything to do with who we are, what we're doing, what we need. We need people to support us, pray for us, people to financially give, people to volunteer. If anything that I have said resonates with you, or even slightly gives you the idea of, I would like to help in a way, go to our website, visit our website, and see what you can give or how you can give.
Thank you for listening to the end of the Sand and Stars podcast. Really excited to have been with you in this episode, and I hope that you got inspired, you learned something that you probably had no idea about. So if you know anyone who is doing something that is out of the norm, interesting, impactful, very, very different, something that no one would ever think about, go ahead and share the details with me. You can email me at mbithakingori@gmail.com. It's also in the description, and we can get them on the podcast. Super excited to share the next episode with you, so stick on.